Today we're going to talk about how to go ahead and sell more by increasing the value. Now, a lot of times you'll see people that drop the price on an item, or they'll drop the price on their services. Never drop the price. Instead, you want to increase the value. What exactly does that mean? Let me explain. Imagine, if you would, that you wanted to sell a house, and you're going to sell it as is. As is, where is, whatever's there is there. Well, if I was buying that house, I would want to have at least a $5,000 cushion there to make sure that there aren't any type of warranty issues, that there wasn't anything I had to do on the property. Instead of losing $5,000, would it be a better deal for me to get a home inspection and a property warranty? A home inspection is going to be anywhere between $250 and $500, and a warranty could be anywhere between $200 and $500. And if you do a combination of those two, anywhere between a total of $500 to $1,000, you're going to save yourself a reduction in price of at least $4,000. And you can tell people, I've had it inspected, I have a warranty on it. So if there's anything wrong with the washers, dryers, appliances, boom, they're covered. Anything wrong with the air conditioning, boom, they're covered. Same thing with the inspection. By showing them that you had an inspection done and all the items have been approved, what just happened was, you've increased the value. They don't have that, the buyer's not going to have that angst and anxiety about something going wrong. What about other things that you might be selling? Let's say that you're going to be selling a car, as is, where is. It has, let's say, 50,000 miles on it, and let's say it's a Camry. What's it worth? Well, whatever a willing, able buyer and a willing, able seller are going to go ahead and sell it for. But let's say that I went ahead and I had the inspection history, and I went ahead and had it serviced every 5,000 miles. And I went ahead and showed this has been lovingly taken care of. I've used the top quality types of oil. There hasn't been any mechanical problems. And if I went ahead and showed that value by showing they've been lovingly maintained, would it be worth more than just as is, where is? Absolutely. So sometimes the records make a difference. Let's say that you're trying to sell your business, and you went ahead and put a price out there, as is, where is, whatever's here, take it, there's no warranty of any type. That doesn't give me a whole lot of warm fuzzies. But what would happen if I said, I have 3 years of tax returns? These are audited tax returns where I showed every dollar that came in, I showed every dollar that went out. I went ahead and showed your earnings before interest, depreciation, taxes, and amortization, and it's going to be enough to support this business. I want to go ahead and show exactly what type of relationships I have with my vendors and how I've paid my vendors on time. Is that property going to be worth a lot more? Is that business going to be worth a lot more than something that just says, here it is, go ahead and take it? When I was working for Joe White at First Metropolitan Mortgage, he used to have a proclamation, anyone that calls on the phone and asks, what's the interest rate? And if you give them an interest rate over the phone, poof, you're fired. I thought that was interesting. Why? He said, because the instant that someone calls in and says, what's the interest rate? And you say 5.5% or 6.5% or 7.5%, whatever the interest rate was, the instant they get that, click. Hello? Hello? Where'd you go? Instead, he said, I want you to tell them, it depends. Tell me a little bit about your situation. What we have is we have interest rates anywhere from 1% if you want to buy down the interest rate by paying an exorbitant amount of money, up to 18% if you have terrible credit. And sometimes your interest rate doesn't matter. It's what you're going to be doing with that property that matters more than what your interest rate is at the current time. So before I tell you what the interest rate is, why don't you come in and we'll see what works best for your situation. Because I can go ahead and quote you an interest rate of 1%. You might be paying 15 points to buy it down to that, and it might not make sense if you're going to go ahead and turn around and sell this within 5 years, but I can do all types of things. It depends upon your situation. So what you want to do is, if someone ever asks you for a quote, don't give them a quote over the phone. Unless you have a commodity type of service that the only thing that you're selling is the price. If you give them a quote over the phone, thank you, click. And they're going to be calling somebody else. And if that somebody else is smart, even if they have a slightly higher interest rate, they're going to say, well, that all depends. Why don't you come in and we'll talk about your situation. That person will come in and they might be 0.75% higher, but because they had people come in, they can say, well, according to your situation, this would be the right program for you. And they might get them in and they might sell them a mortgage. Whereas you, by saying 5.5%, just shut yourself out of the negotiation process completely because they didn't come in to see you. Get them into the office. I was working for a headhunter firm, and someone called in and said, what are your rates? What are your fees? And the receptionist says $3,500. And the boss heard this, and she heard this click, and she comes screaming out to the receptionist, never tell somebody what the fees are. Always have them come into the office. Because if you tell somebody these are what the fees are and they don't know the value that you're giving them, guess what? Your price is too high. Now, you can use this for tangible products, you can use this for intangible products, you can use this for services, you can use this for whatever you want. But you want to talk to someone and find out exactly what they want and treat them as a client rather than a customer. And remember, a client is someone that's under your protection. A customer is somebody you sell things to. And do not be a commodity. Instead of lowering your price, increase your value. Now, is that value always going to be set in stone? You can have a perceived value. I remember one time we were doing this promo. We were doing this seminar. And we asked people to spend $30 to go ahead and sign up, and in return they would get a premium pack worth $595, almost $600. So they put up $30, they got $600 in return. Is there any way that someone would say no way to that? No. People say, wow. What they got was they got a lot of software that had a perceived value of $600, but the cost of that was much less than $600. So you can have things that have a perceived value that are much higher than what your actual cost to give to that person is. So you always want to know, number one, what your costs are, and number two, you want to set that value in place so that people see the perceived value. And before you do a price drop, you have to set the price. If someone calls in and says, I want to buy this, what's it cost? And you say, $6,000. Woo, that's too expensive. Too expensive for what? You don't know what you're getting until you find out what all is included. So before a person can say that's too expensive, you have to have them know what they're getting. So never drop your price. Always increase value, and don't do a price drop until after you've set the price. If you don't have a justified price drop, you're just dropping it, and everything else falls into question. They doubt your credibility. So don't do a price drop until you give them a reason, and you have to have a valid you have to have a justification for your price drop.